Well, good afternoon, evening, morning, night, whenever you're watching this. For me, it's the evening. Today, we're going to be taking out the new Shuttle AM with the Gen 5 Bosch race motor. The bike is the brown color. A couple of the new features of the bike is, well, the new Gen 5 motor. Bigger battery, 800 watt hour, able to produce 750 watts of power and 100 Newton meters of torque. Race motor has overrun that you can program to run, I believe, as long as 3 seconds as an overrun, which is insanely long. The only adjustment I've made to the bike is I've outfitted the wheels with the Mazda Race Enduro. It's the same tire I ran on my previous Shuttle AM. And I just really appreciate how that tire holds the ground and the durability of it. So the new AM, other than the power, also has a new kiosk display integrated in there. So a little nicer to be able to see some more information right there without the use of another like bike computer type of thing. Some of the interesting things that Pivot has done on this one, they've kind of departed from some of the suspension designs or spec from what they've done in the past. This bike comes with Rock Shox suspension. I really like that the XO build has the Zeb. It's a 38 mil stanchion. My previous AM, I actually put a Fox 38 on it to give it the feel that I was looking for. So I feel like the Zeb is going to give me more of what my bike felt like in the past. I've always been a fan of the Super Deluxe Ultimate shock. It does a great job feeling plush yet supportive, along with the DW Link. They can actually run the same shock tune on the new AM as they do on the standard Switchblade, so that you don't have to worry about changing compression ratios in the shock to make up for the e-bike, for the pedaling, the extra power. The DW Link just does its job under pedaling, and then the shock can do its job when hitting bumps or descending. So that's really, I'm pretty intrigued to see that, and I'm excited to ride it and see how that feels. The other thing is they've gone to a OneUp dropper. That's a 180. I could probably run a 400. I don't know. Well, not really. That was a joke. But I still have a fair amount of space. I could run a bigger one. But enough about the bike. The Badlands Brown looks really cool in person. Super digging it. But yeah, let's go see how this rides. So my previous AM, absolutely loved that bike. And got rid of it to start riding an LT when the new one came out. And I'll upload a review on the LT. I actually may do like kind of a shootout type of thing on these two. LT versus the AM, and see how they differ. Not like one's gonna win, but maybe one would win. So the new Bosch motor, initially when the Gen 5 came out, it lost some of the pop or punch that the Gen 4 had. But now with new software updates, it's got that back. So that's really good. Not just having more power, longer or bigger battery, but to not have lost some of that punch that the bike previously had. So typically on my previous one, I would run in my lowest setting. Now that had the race motor as well. Ooh, that was noticeably like playful and poppy right there. Huh. That was intriguing. A little more pop than the previous bike. Is that the Rock Shox suspension? So anyway, previous bike pretty much only run in the green mode. Gives me range. Feel like it's plenty for the riding I'm doing when I'm on the e-bike. I'm actually going for like lower heart rate. Not necessarily trying to smash KOMs and whatnot. Just building endurance and having a good time riding an e-bike. It's actually been a little bit since I was on my AM. And we actually sold my wife's to get this one. So this is actually my wife's bike. So I get the inaugural ride on it though. She was nice enough to let that happen. But having spent more time on the LT recently, even in its mixed wheel configuration, it's not as maneuverable as this feels right out of the gate. And I actually prefer the LT in a full 29er. I feel like the bike feels more balanced for me, for my riding style and where I'm riding in that configuration versus the mixed wheel. So another feature of the new Bosch is an updated mode, the EMTB Plus. So we're actually gonna run it in that in a little bit here and see how that feels. But so far, I gotta say this feels a lot like I'm riding my Switchblade. Like, so far it just feels at home. And my Switchblade is the current gen. I have the Switchblade Talon with number plate 69 of 300. Yeah, so far this rig feels a lot like it. Slight, you know, weight difference obviously, but I'm not noticing like a lethargic feeling e-bike. It's handling so far is really good, and a couple spots where I tend to get off the ground on the other bike, this thing is doing just as well. One other update to this bike is it's no longer running 148 rear travel, it's matching the Slam at 150. So we gained a couple mils of travel from the previous gen. In this build, a Zeb fork, which feels really good so far. Like the stiffness and turning, there's times I felt the 36 was a little undergunned for the terrain I'm riding, but it wasn't bad. I liked the way the 38 made the front end feel more responsive turning and handled chunk better. It gained a little bit of weight, but not the biggest concern with the e-bike. So this one is also running the alloy DT Swiss wheels, and my previous I was running carbon. Carbon is nice. Feel like it's a little more durable. I haven't broken like more than one carbon wheel in my whole riding career, but I've dented a number of alloy wheels. So time will tell on these. Although with Val riding it instead of me, we're probably gonna be just fine. So we just finished a weekend of the Ramba shenanigans, or 25 hours of shenanigans. 25-hour solo or team race with very little sleep and a lot of fun. And so I'm riding portions of that course because it was just a dang fun course. So here we're coming up to the infamous double stairs. We'll hook off of those and we're gonna hook a left. That felt smooth. That felt nice. All right, let's up it to EMTB. Ooh. There's a noticeable difference in power output right out of the gate, but it's really smooth. And I feel like it's a little quieter than the previous motor, which motor noise, I don't know, doesn't really bug me, but the fact that it's a little quieter is nice. But that smooth power delivery, just feeling really good. So here we're gonna spend some time going up fence line. I'll come down it later. It's typically a trail I ride down, but it is ridden in this direction for that shenanigans race. Also for the Margigesic. So we'll go into race mode for this one. Jeez, this is silly. And the overrun, like I stopped pedaling so I don't pedal strike on something, and the bike just shoots up and over. That's insane. Wow. This is great. Okay. Back to EMTB. Whew. Even getting winded a bit there. So this trail is called Panorama. And that's because of the beautiful view that we get to see. Coming up in a sec, we'll get a nice panoramic look. Look at that. Beautiful scenery. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm riding in the Ramba trails in Negaunee and Ishpeming, Michigan, Upper Peninsula of the state, near Lake Superior, near Marquette, and their famous South Trails. But Ramba has about 80 miles of single track, and it's mostly hand-cut rugged stuff with some sketchy drop things. Ooh, like that panorama chute. And that is a blast. Smooth as butter. Drop there. Yeah, the bike is super maneuverable feeling. Like it's just dancing around these tight, twisty trails. Good support from the suspension. In fact, I'm probably going to take the small bump compliance down a notch. Let's change our low speed compression real quick. Couple clicks. Smooth it out a touch. Okay. Whoop. Yep. Rip. So the plantedness and traction that this bike is providing through these chunky bits, it's just staying so glued to the trail and allowing me to just rip through these corners. But yet it's felt poppy, and I'll test it right here off this little jump. Oh, yes, that was good. Oh, this is fun. A hook to flat and whip around these corners. Here we are on Beaver Tail, dancing through some tight stuff. Yeah, the EMTB mode has a really snappy power delivery, but it's easy to control with the Maven brakes, so it's not overwhelming. I do feel like current settings are a little more friendly to a higher cadence, where on the previous AM I felt like at least the settings I had really worked well with the torque style, pedaling style. Coming from riding single speeds, I don't always downshift for a climb, and that previous Bosch CX did a great job like pushing through and giving me the extra power. So far, this one seems to back off a little bit more, but I did have custom settings on the AM that I found worked really well for me in each mode. Unfortunately, our camera angles don't always show how steep a section we're going down or even up. So you don't necessarily get to appreciate like the speed in which I'm going up some of this stuff. Probably looks like it's a flat, but I'm climbing some pretty challenging climbs right here, and this thing is just moving. So this is Whiskey, one of my absolute faves out here. Whew. Yes. What a giggle. Oh. All right. Love this descent on Whiskey. We've seen it on a couple of the ride casts and even reviews. It's just super chunky but fast. Tight squeezes between trees, plenty of roots and rocks to keep you entertained. And this thing just danced right through. Oh geez. So while not as plush overall so far as the LT, it's a little bit unfair, even though they're both a 38 mil stanchion fork. But I would say that I'm liking this rear suspension a little bit more than I remember liking my previous AM suspension. The front with the 38 felt great, and then the Float X made it feel just a slight bit unbalanced from a plushness standpoint. This combination gives me the feeling similar to that of the previous AM in the front end, but feel like it's a little more plush in the back and a little more poppy, which is a nice combination for a bike that's supposed to be a do-it-all, ride-every-trail e-bike. Whether you're doing laps on jump lines, technical climbing like we're doing here, steep rock rolls like this, the bike just seems to absolutely rail through all of it with so far not a complaint about anything. So the geometry on the bike really hasn't changed. The old one worked so dang well. It doesn't totally surprise me. The updates in motor, the spec of the brakes, like the LT that we've got came spec'd with Shimano XT, and during my first ride I almost went off the trail 4 times and almost hit a log once because the brakes just didn't have the power. I spent time bedding them in, but it just felt so undergunned for a bike so capable that we switched to Mavens after the first ride. Now there's no confidence issues. The bike can stop and it can go comfortably. So I'm glad to see that this came spec'd with Mavens and not like the XTs or even the Motives. While the Motive had the old code caliper and probably would have done a nice job, the power delivery of the Maven is so good, and yet they modulate in. It's not like slam and you're stopping unless you want it to. You can hair trigger it and get a smooth brake actuation like a car. And they give you the confidence at speed to just spike the brakes and slow down before your corner. They just did a great job with that brake. So this is Broke Bike. I would tell you that it is my overall favorite descent in all of the Ramba system. Oh, hey, a deer. Screaming fast in spots with some big chunk, a couple of nice poppy jumpy spots like there. We get a techie climb partway through after we drop into a valley coming up here. Man. Oh, so good. Grip has not been an issue so far. A couple of other spots coming up where it can be a problem. Get that inside. Oh my gosh. I think that's probably the first time I've ever like popped off and jumped there. What a playful bike. Wow. Okay, coming into the home stretch. Rock slab here. And pound through the chunky. Oh my gosh. Got a little hot into that last corner there. Woo, baby. That was a ripper. This is another portion of Whiskey Trail. It's fun to just scream down. So, probably hearing some stuff bouncing off the frame. There's actually a skid plate pivot designed for this to help protect the frame and the motor. It's not an actual Bosch product or a thing. It's actually, that's Pivot's own design underneath to protect here. You can hear it's doing its job. So we ran that in turbo, not even race. And that felt incredibly quick. Even with it having a larger battery and a more powerful motor, it weighs less than the previous AM, which is pretty astounding. And having a bike that's coming in right around 47.5 pounds, I haven't weighed this one, and it won't totally be fair because the tires I run are heavier. The Mazda Race Enduro is about 14 ounces, almost a full pound, heavier than their trail tire. So I'm adding nearly 2 pounds of weight versus the normal trail tire I run. And I haven't compared them to the Maxes that come on here. Personally, I don't mind the DHF, but the DHR2 to me is just too slow rolling, and I don't find it's got a consistent amount of lateral traction. That felt good. That hucked near to flat, if not to flat. And there was no harsh landing feel. That was butter smooth. Onto fence line. We're gonna take a little dip off to go run Coyote Den and hit the rock roll and chunky descent bit there. Hopefully you're all enjoying this terrain, because I am. Best description I can say of how this bike feels comparatively to the LT, and even I'm going to say my previous AM, and I'm going to say it's down to some of the motor, some of the weight, but a bit of that suspension. It just feels sporty, more so than my previous bike, and definitely more sporty than the LT. While the LT, I'm going to give the nod to plushness and like just the fact that you can motor smash through so much stuff, and it feels like almost like you're just on a sidewalk. It just does such a great job as an enduro bike. This one, that nimble playfulness that this bike is giving me really just feels quite natural. I don't notice that I'm on an e-bike, other than I'm moving a lot faster than I could normally, or breathing a lot easier, at least. Nah, I'm still moving faster. Just the way you can pump this thing comparatively to my previous one feels better. And I don't feel like there's any change in the kinematics. But dang, that is smoothing that out. If you watch the Trailcat review, that's where we went over that and showed a slow-mo. That drop felt good into our big rock roll. Through the chunky bit. Loose turn. Hop off the root, jump, yep. Over the rocks, yep. Just, oh, so good. I feel like as much as I dig the LT, that there's definitely a place for this where just being able to whip it through these tighter trails that we have here, it feels like it's faster than the LT as a trail bike. Not necessarily on the descents, but not necessarily not on the descents. We'll have to see when, but like, this is good. Okay, so here's that fence line descent we climbed up earlier. Oh my gosh. So fast. Oh my gosh. That was a ripper. I'm gonna tell you right now, that was wild. That was wild. So, the only thing is I'm not tracking this on any type of bike computer. I'm not running it on my watch. I'm not. So I won't be able to look and see on segments how fast I was going. But man, I can tell you the feeling was very, very good. And that's all that matters. Stats, the segments, the tracking every mile, it's all nice and it's good if you want to keep track of it, and a lot of cases I do, but it is all about the fun and the feeling you get while being on a bike. And when a bike can provide the type of enjoyment that this thing is providing, I don't care about any of those stats. This is a giggle. Yeah, still a little less oomph in this setting than what I'm used to in the old one. But the cadence spinning, like as it winds up a little, the power delivery is really nice. So for me, riding it, there might be just a slight adjustment in the fact that I'd shift more often. No big deal. This new motor is fantastic. This bike is fantastic. One more time down the stairs. Woo! And smooth as butter. Well, that concludes the first ride and review of the new Shuttle AM from Pivot. 2 more mils of travel in the rear, bigger battery, more power, lighter weight. I'm digging the Rock Shox suspension setup. It's adding a level of pop that I didn't feel on the previous bike, yet I don't feel like I'm losing the plushness from the previous AM that I had set up. In fact, I think it's probably better. So overall, this one is a big win. If I have any knock on the bike, it's really nitpicky. It's the fact that on this level of bike, I'd like to see an Access wireless dropper. Not a big deal to have an extra cable here, but it's not a big deal not to have an extra cable there. And I've just liked how the Access droppers have worked over the years. Tire spec, I would like to see the Cryptotals on here, like the LT comes with, other than the Maxxis. But again, those are nitpicky things. The Maxxis work well. It's not a bad tire. I just find the DHR2 slower rolling than I'd like, and it doesn't have the lateral traction consistency. In fact, I used to run DHF front and back, and that felt more consistent. But with the Mazda Race Enduros, the Maven brakes, this thing is, and the Zeb fork, having a 38 mil stanchion on this bike makes such a big difference in how the front end handles and feels. So overall, I'm digging this build, and it's been a blast to ride. So hopefully you found this review helpful, and you go out and get yourself a new Shuttle AM, hopefully from West End or your local shop. But either way, Pivot knocked it out of the park on this one again. I still think it's probably the best e-bike I've ridden from Pivot, and one of my favorites overall. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.